Okay, so now I'm at a point with the song where I need to export all my EZdrummer tracks. And so for EZdrummer, I use primarily the death metal kit, which weirdly works for a lot of genres. But there's a couple things I don't use on it. So I have an exporting process that's like a little bit more complicated than it needs to be, just because I am going to switch kits for a couple sounds. But primarily I use this death metal kit, and I always turn off the reverb and the compression because I'm not going to be using those. I want my own reverb, and I don't want them compressed any more than they probably already are. They even when they say they're not compressed, they are a bit compressed. But one thing I need to do to get ready is to get rid of all my like kind of hi-hat count off parts. So I have some here. Then I'm just gonna take those out. So it just kind of will start now. And then there's some more here, like so I don't want any of these either. So I'm going to take those out. No, I'm not going to merge them. I'm going to remove them. There we go. So I'm just going to go track by track here. So I'm going to render this to my tracks folder for this song. And I kind of number everything just to keep it more organized. So this will be the kick drum. Okay. So that's that. Then we're going to go to the snare, and the snare is like super hot. Like if you just try and render it from there. So I always take out 8.5. I found that kind of keeps it closer to where I want to be. Like this is just me, but I kind of aim for everything being at around -12. That is just completely arbitrary. But that's where a lot of my templates are kind of set up to work for my own personal music. So I kind of get everything to about -12. Not everything, as you'll see. Okay, and then this one is a hi-hat, and the hi-hats are the opposite problem. They are super, super low. So I turn them all the way up. And these are going to be number 4, actually, and you'll kind of see. But see this, even when it's all the way up, it'll, you know, kind of just barely get to -18. So that's where I put the hi-hats. So we'll let this render. And then after that, I'm going to make a couple changes. And also see, I'm exporting all these in mono. So I'm going to get the snare back to 0, and then the death metal kit doesn't have a snare bottom. It just kind of has this like snare bottom bleed, which is not enough control for me. So I actually use the snare bottom from the Metal Machine kit. So I'll solo solo my snare, and then solo just the snare bottom. And this will be snare bottom. And the snare bottom comes up kind of like usually in between -18 and -12, which is fine for me. And then the toms on the death metal kit are okay. But I found that the pop punk kit, specifically Roomy Goodness, has better tom sounds. In fact, on the death metal kit, the floor tom sounds amazing, but some of the rack toms are questionable, kind of very plastic sounding. So I switch it to the pop punk kit here, and you will notice that toms are like together and they're like a stereo file, which I don't want. So I'm gonna hit my rack tom and solo it. So solo selected, so only the rack tom comes up. And I set this to about 4.5. That's where I like it to be. So we'll do a mono rack tom. So I'll just switch it over here and still leave it on solo selected. So now it's just the floor tom. Again, these are both mono tracks, so I can pan them the way that I want them to be panned. Okay, that is done. So now for my overheads and my room, I'm going to go back to my death metal kit. And I actually have this set up as a preset because I have the bleed and the ambience and everything set up a certain way. So like on the ambience, you can adjust the bleed of the cymbals. So I actually have the cymbals kind of taken out a little bit. I have it at like 70% instead of full out, just because it makes the room track easier to deal with. So we'll do the room track first, and these next two are going to be stereo. So I'll go right here. And I'm okay with these ones being a little less loud than the other tracks. I don't need to get it up to -12 or whatever. I just kind of leave these wherever they're at when the fader is set to 0. And then for overheads, because I can do it, because hi-hats can be such a pain, and because I just want control, I'm going to highlight the whole thing. I'm going to actually take out all my hi-hats to 0 and render my overheads track with no hi-hats at all. And I know, you know, if you're mixing live drums, you're not going to be able to do that, but these aren't live drums, and if I can have the control, then I want it. What I would do with live drums is probably just not use a dedicated hi-hat track and just use the hi-hat. Just see if I can get the hi-hat from the overheads, and then if I needed a hi-hat track for like a really kind of fine-tuned part that's quiet and maybe has a little bit more stuff going on, then I would kind of fade that in. But seeing as how it's EZdrummer and MIDI drums and I can just not have to deal with that, then I'm not going to deal with it. What you do want to do though is before you kind of X out is you want to hit undo and get all those hi-hat hits back. Because that'll be an issue later if you need to re-render something. Another thing you could do if you want, I usually don't do this in EZdrummer, but you could hit your ride and hit solo and create like a dedicated ride track. But at least in the mixes for my music, I haven't felt the need to do it. It comes through pretty solid in the overhead tracks. I've actually already rendered like my guitars and all that kind of stuff. So that is exporting drums from EZdrummer.